think I want any of these magical gifts. They're pretty dark. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Library of Parthos. My name is Sarah, and today we are talking about a debut author, a new YA fantasy book. I'm super excited to dive into this. I did a few Instagram posts about this book, and one of the things that I said is that it reminds me of Encanto, except I would not want to be a part of this family. They're so dysfunctional and dangerous. I'm just out, okay? But I really enjoyed the book, aside from the fact that I wouldn't want to be part of this family. So today we're going to be talking about The Beast We Bury by D.L. Taylor. I got this in an OwlCrate box a couple of months ago. So of course we have to take a moment to appreciate the cover, the sprayed edges, all of the artwork on the inside. Honestly, I really powered through this book. It was an easy read. It's a dual point of view story, so we'll get into the two main characters in just a moment. And so that really helped with the pacing of this book. Of course, I have thoughts, so as always, we'll do a quick spoiler-free summary for anyone who just kind of wants to know if this is the book for you. Without going into all of the details, we'll do a super detailed summary with spoilers involved, so if that is something you're trying to avoid, maybe skip that part. Also, this one did end... I don't want to say it. So stick around toward the end of the video because the end is wild and I definitely want to discuss it. Without further ado, let's dive into a quick spoiler-free summary. So for a quick spoiler-free summary, Marcella Cliff is the daughter of the Prime, who in this world is kind of just like the leader of that region. And she is about to be appointed the second. So she'll be second in command, being primed to take over as Prime. Yeah. And so in doing so, she has to do some very difficult tasks that her father sets up for her in order to prove that her magic is strong enough to become the Prime one day. In doing all of this, she gets to know Silver, who is a thief, kind of moonlighting as a worker in the palace. And so we get a dual point of view story where we are learning about Mancella's life as a member of the royal family, shall we say, as well as Silver's perspective of living in the slums and how these two characters are able to share their perspectives on the world and their life experiences and kind of realize that maybe things aren't exactly what they thought. So that's pretty much it, I think, spoiler-free. I didn't really dive into the magic too much. I mean, it's not really a spoiler. It's explained pretty early on in the book, but we will get into that a little bit more when we dive into a summary with spoilers, which we will do now. So again, if you are wanting to avoid spoilers, skip to the end of the video so that this book is not ruined for you. Okay, so in this world, there is magic. It's not something that everybody can access, and it's not something that everybody can control. And so when you are of a certain rank, so it's usually just high-ranking people of the I'm going to say royal family because I think that's probably the best way to describe them. If you are a member of the royal family, you have access to it. If, as we learn in the story, the royal, whoever the Prime is, doesn't have any heirs, they may choose people to kind of get magic in the hopes that they could become the next Prime. So it's very limited who gets access to this magic. To have magic, you have to go to the, I believe it's called the Broken Citadel or the Forbidden Citadel, one of those two. And you basically walk into this old, abandoned, super dark, scary temple, and either you walk back out with a magic ability or you don't come out at all. And so, like I said, I don't think I want any of these magical gifts. They're pretty dark. Mance, her power is that if she kills an animal, she can then kind of summon their spirit and have it do things. Now, when she first went to the Citadel, her older sister Mara went in first, didn't come out, wasn't coming out. The family was very concerned. So then they sent Mance in, she came out, and then Mara came out later. Very injured. I think she's missing an eye, like part of her gum is, or part of her lips are missing. Definitely took a toll on her. So anyway, because Mara doesn't have any magic, Mance is set up from the age of like 8 when she first goes into the Citadel to become the next Prime. So because of that, and because of her magic, her father of course wants to make sure that she's strong enough, and so he starts testing the limits of her magic and how it works. No, we are learning all of this as the story progresses. I'm just kind of summarizing now because I think it's important to know to understand like where the plot goes. So basically, as a child, he made her kill all of these different animals of varying sizes in different ways to kind of see how the magic works. And ultimately, they figure out that it has to be a fair fight. So typically that means no weapons. It usually has to be with her hands in some capacity. She absorbs their like soul, spirit, and then can make like, they're like ghost animals kind of, except they can like physically do damage. She has a horse that she can ride. So they're like ghost, but kind of physical-ish. So Mance's grandfather, when he was the Prime, his ability was to like make things out of glass. So they have this beautiful glass forest that is like surrounding the palace, and it was down the hillside, like into the village. However, in previous conflicts, all of those trees have kind of been smashed and broken. And so for anyone who kind of lives outside of the city limits, there's just glass all over the ground and like flying through the air at any given time, especially if it's like super windy. And so that makes living in that area really, really difficult. And this is where our good friend Silver lives. So Silver is a thief. He is an academy dropout. So the academy is basically, if you're an orphan, if you come from not a great economic situation, you can enter the academy as a child. They basically break you down and turn you into a soldier, and then you get graduation papers that will allow you to get a job, buy a house. If you don't have those things, there's absolutely no way you're going to get any of those things. So as a dropout, Silver has no hopes of purchasing a home, getting a job, doing any of the normal societal things. So he's a thief, and he gets hired to do a job inside the palace. So the first task is to steal something with the Prime's seal on it. And so he ends up, as I said in my spoiler-free summary, kind of moonlighting as different workers within the palace, where he gets to meet Mance. And also, pretty early on, it's established that he hates her guts. She has this cushy life up in the palace. She doesn't have to kick glass off of her feet every time she enters a building. She doesn't have to make sure she's inside by a certain hour so that she doesn't get impaled with shards of glass that are flying through the air. So, and all of that, like, she kind of presents herself very, very arrogantly. She never smiles. She always has this like very stern look on her face. And so he just thinks she's a prude. She's this rich jerk, absolutely hates her guts. And now he's working in the palace and like has to actually interact with her. Great. However, if he's able to pull this off, his reward will be academy papers and a house. So the two things that are completely out of reach for him right now. So definitely worth kind of overcoming this deep hatred. Mancella is written as someone who has been put in a really tough position. So first of all, she's forced to kill all of these animals. She has no interest in doing so. Also, she's very alone. So she has her sister, but after the Citadel, they just kind of grew apart. They both went through a very traumatic experience. Aside from that, all of her family's like gone. So her uncle, her cousin Alec that she was super, super close with, they went into the Citadel or disappeared and are dead, and she hasn't heard from them in forever. So she's very lonely. So Silver kind of shows some interest in talking to her. Of course, we know it's fake because we're reading his perspective on it, but I think she's kind of just looking for any sort of emotional connection that she can make early on in the story. So she does kind of confide in him a little bit because her father has asked something very difficult of her. He has just recently at the start of the book asked her to kill a jaguar so she can kind of show the power of the Cliff family and the strength when they are meeting with the prime of the grassland region. And she suspects that maybe he's not done asking difficult things of her, and she is correct in that. So Mancella begins to trust Silver. She begins to confide in him. She wants to change. When she becomes the prime, she doesn't want to be so combat heavy like her father is. She wants to be more kind and compassionate, and so she starts talking about those things with Silver. He's showing her what his life is like. She wants to go to this academy and kind of see what's up, and she realizes that the kids there are in very, very difficult positions. It is not academically advantageous to them at all. It's basically just whipping them up into soldiers that her father can use for his next war. And so she confronts him about this, and he says, oh, you know, I love that you're getting involved. I love that, you know, a couple of days before I appoint you as my second in command, I love that you're taking some leadership opportunities and looking for ways to make change. I will, you know, I'll support whatever you want to do for the school. So she comes up with a plan. He's all on board, and he says, great, we'll do this immediately on one condition. And that condition is you need to kill a human and see if you can then summon that human's spirit the way you can do an animal. So you have a few days, pick somebody, probably a kid from the academy because they're orphans and no one's going to miss them. So either you pick or I pick. It's up to you. And so she is just absolutely mortified that she has to make this decision. She comes up with a plan. She's going to fake killing the person so that her father will leave her alone because he'll see that the magic didn't work the way he was hoping it would. Silver and his friends Vi and Rooftop get in on this plan. So Vi is the one who's going to fight Mance. Rooftop and Silver will be there to kind of take the body and make sure that nobody asks too many questions. The fight goes as planned. She snaps Vi's neck, and really it's just a move that the palace healers do on her, and she shows that to Silver later because he, for a moment, thinks that she actually killed Vi and says some really horrible things to her. But the plan is a success as far as she can tell. Her father leaves her alone because she killed a human and can't summon the magic like he had hoped. So for right now, everything's fine. Or so she thinks. He asks her to go visit the grassland. As they're on their way there, they're kind of talking, and she's, you know, saying that she wishes that he would be more open with her about what's going on, especially if she's supposed to be helping make those decisions. So he says trust goes both ways. If we're going to be open with each other, then you gotta tell me why you faked killing a person. So of course he knew all along. He puts a bracelet on her once she summons her animals that kind of locks them outside of her body, so she's not able to summon them back. And a conflict breaks out with soldiers from the grassland. Mance is getting very upset. Her animals are kind of able to feed off of her emotion, so if she's upset, they feel upset, and they start just attacking people and killing people. And she's so frustrated by this, of course, so devastated by this. Her father is still trying to get her to manifest like a human, and in the hopes that he can just make her like a one-woman army, and it's not working. Thankfully, Silver knew something was wrong, and he kind of came to the rescue. They end up on this like really awesome boat in the middle of a lake. The description is so cool, and one of the things that I really love about this book is how every person's magic is slightly different and the descriptions that we get of that. But I want to just kind of quickly rush to the end of the summary before we dive into that too much. As they are kind of hiding out there, you know, they're growing closer together. There's only one bed, but nothing happens. So while Mance is kind of sleeping and recovering, Silver was able to get the bracelet off of her. The person that Silver is working for meets him and says, your last task is to bring Mance to me with the bracelet on her arm. And if you don't do that, I'm going to kill your friends. So of course he has to. So the next day they go back to Silver's like hovel that he lives in with Vi and Rooftop, and the big reveal, the person that Silver had been working for this whole time is Mance's cousin Alec that she thought was dead. And here he is pulling all of these strings, you know, manipulating everybody, creating these wars because he wants to take over as Prime. So he has created this entire war that is currently going on. Even though the grasslands wanted peace, he's been changing their messages so that it sounds like they want conflict. And we also find out at this point that Alec does have his own magic, so he's able to like split himself into different aspects of his personality. And so there is this small conflict that breaks out. He ends up blowing up the house, but everyone is okay, don't worry. And they realize that he's going up to the castle to try to kill the Prime. All the secrets are kind of exposed. Mance thinks her family is killed, and because she sees a lot of blood everywhere, but what in reality what happened is Mara has had magic this entire time and hasn't told her sister. So we're just finding out now. She has the ability to use parts of her body to make barriers of a sort. So she made the bracelet that Mance was wearing. If she uses her blood, it kind of creates like a force field. So she had like cut her arm, wiped her blood across the floor to kind of make a force field around her family so that they were safe. And Mara made a necklace for Mance and said, you know, if you put this on, it's going to take your magic away from you. Do with it what you will. Wear it, don't wear it. But you know, if you're going to keep this magic and you're going to use it, I think it needs to be your choice because a lot of this was forced on you. So she has the necklace with her, kind of undecided whether she's going to use it or not. Conflict breaks out, of course. Alec splits himself into many pieces. They're fighting all of the different pieces of him. They kind of say like, it's going to be a stalemate. You know, we could just lock ourselves behind some force field that Mara creates and talk, but we're probably not going to get anywhere because we want different things. So the Prime throws a bottle to Mance and says, hey, this is sleeping gas. This is what the healers will use. Just use this, knock him out, and then we'll go from there. So she does, and unfortunately it's not sleeping gas. It's like fire and explosives. She ends up killing Alec unintentionally. However, it was a fair fight, and so the magic likes that, and so his spirit is kind of absorbed into her, unfortunately proving her father's theory correct, that she can kill humans as long as it's a fair fight, and then you like kind of resummon them essentially, or at least absorb their power. And she kind of realizes at this point he's not going to stop. Like, her dad is always going to be trying to use her to gain more power. It's never going to end. So she uses the necklace on him to absorb all of his power, not to kill him, he's fine, but she locks all of his power inside this necklace. And since you can only rule if you have magic, he can no longer be Prime, which then makes her the Prime. So at the end of the story, she is now the ruler. Her first few actions as ruler are to make a treaty with the grasslands, no more fighting, and she also is able to dispose of all of the tree pieces that are still outside of the city. So while she can't, you know, scoop up every individual shard of glass, she can prevent new ones from being made. And so hopefully that'll contribute to better lives for the citizens outside of the castle. Of course, they have no idea all of this happened, so they're shocked to find her appointed as Prime, not even second, just in charge. So that's kind of where the story ends. It does end on a bit of a cliffhanger because after the coronation and all of that stuff, she goes back to her room and we find out that she has herself locked in the closet because not only did she absorb Alec's spirit, she absorbed his magic as well and can now split herself into different parts. And so she took out like the darker part of herself and locked it away. So that is the end of The Beasts We Bury. So I do know this will at least be a duology. The second book comes out sometime next year, I believe. As I mentioned earlier, I love seeing the different types of magic that everybody can do, and it's really interesting how the author wrote them as beautiful, but also very, very dangerous. For example, the glass trees, right? Absolutely gorgeous. The details and the descriptions are amazing. incredibly deadly when they're broken. It really helped with the tone of the book. I think that, like, you know, this is all very beautiful but very deadly, and I love that tone overall in literature, and I loved it in this story. So I have a couple fan theories moving forward. So I think moving forward, Mance and her like bad self are going to continue to be in conflict. I think there are going to be times where, because like they can act as separate people, but when they like come back together, all of their like shared memories and experiences come back into one. So I think that there are going to be times where they kind of split up and then come back together, and she's going to realize like all of the things that this bad version of herself has done. I think it's going to really impact her relationship with Silver, because I think that there are going to be times where the bad her is interacting with him and saying things and doing things that are just so totally against her character. And I mean, I think there's a happy ending in there as well. I think that she's going to figure it out and everything's going to be fine, but I do think that she's going to struggle with that quite a bit. So that's my thought moving forward for how the rest of the story is going to go. That is it for The Beasts We Bury. Let me know your thoughts on the story if you've read it. I'd love to talk about it. Obviously, there's a lot more to this book than what I talked about today. So let's chat about it in the comments. If you haven't read it, highly recommend. I'll put a link in the description that you can use. And as always, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye.